In life, we often see something very interesting. Some people break down when the smallest problem enters their life. Even a tiny setback makes them restless, bitter, and unhappy. But there are also others, people who carry the heaviest burdens yet walk with calmness, patience, and a quiet smile. The difference is not in the number of problems. Both groups face difficulties. The difference is in the size of the heart. When your heart is narrow, even a little sadness becomes unbearable. But when your heart is wide, pain has no place to settle. This story is about that very secret. If you keep your heart small, life will feel bitter. But if you allow your heart to expand, even the hardest times will feel lighter. So listen carefully, because this story is not just for hearing, it is for reflection. There was once a young man named Daniel. Daniel lived in a small town, and though people saw him as ordinary, inside his heart he carried heavy storms. He felt like nothing in his life was going right. Each morning he woke with the thought that the world was against him. Each evening he went to bed wondering why nothing ever worked out. He had no steady job, and his family often reminded him of that fact. Their words pressed like stones on his chest. He looked at his future with fear, as if it were a wall too high to climb. Day after day, Daniel carried a weight of worry that seemed to grow heavier. One afternoon, Daniel sat alone in a small cafe. In front of him was a simple cup of tea, steam rising slowly, but he didn't even notice it. His eyes were empty. His heart was crowded with thoughts of failure, rejection, and fear. Around him, people talked and laughed. But for Daniel, the world felt distant, as though he was trapped behind an invisible wall. At the next table, a group of older men were having a lively conversation. Daniel wasn't trying to listen, but their voices carried clearly. One man said, "Have you heard of the old hermit near the forest? People say he lives alone, but he carries wisdom greater than books. My nephew went to him when life was falling apart. After speaking with him, it was as if his heart had become lighter." Another man agreed, nodding his head. "Yes, I've heard the same. They say just a few words from him can open your mind. He doesn't give money or magic. He gives perspective. And that is what changes everything." Daniel's ears caught every word. His heart stirred with curiosity and a quiet hope. For a moment, the clouds of his sadness shifted, letting through a ray of possibility. If others have found peace from him, maybe I can too. Maybe my burdens don't have to crush me forever. That evening, when the sky turned golden and shadows stretched across the ground, Daniel began walking towards the forest. His steps were heavy at first, but as he continued, he felt something guiding him forward. After a long walk, he reached a small wooden hut surrounded by tall trees. In front of the hut sat an old man with calm eyes, gazing at the sunset as though time itself had slowed for him. Daniel approached with hesitation. His voice trembled as he said, "Sir, my life is full of pain. I wake up worried. I go to sleep afraid. I feel as though everything is falling apart. Please tell me, how can I be happy?" The old man looked at him with gentle eyes, but instead of answering, he simply stood up and went inside the hut. Daniel felt confused. Had he come all this way for nothing? He waited, uncertain but hopeful. After a few minutes, the old man returned, carrying a small bowl of salt and a glass of water. Without saying a word, he placed them in front of Daniel. "Take a handful of salt and put it into the glass," the old man said calmly. Daniel, though unsure, did as he was told. He stirred the water and then looked up, waiting for the next instruction. "Now drink," said the old man. Daniel lifted the glass and took a sip. Immediately, his face twisted in discomfort. "It tastes bitter, terrible. All I can taste is the salt." The old man nodded silently. Then he gestured towards a wide river that flowed nearby, its waters glowing softly in the light of dusk. "Come with me," he said. Together, they walked to the riverbank. The old man handed Daniel another handful of salt. "Now throw this into the river." Daniel tossed the salt into the flowing water. The grains disappeared instantly, lost in the current. "Now," the old man said, "drink from the river." Daniel bent down, cupped his hands, and took a sip. His eyes widened in surprise. "It tastes fresh. I don't feel the salt at all." The old man smiled gently, his face glowing with quiet wisdom. "My son, the pain of life is like salt. The amount is always the same. It doesn't increase or decrease, but the bitterness you feel depends on the vessel you pour it into. If your heart is as small as this glass, then even a little salt will make it unbearable. But if your heart is as wide as the river, the same salt will dissolve without leaving bitterness." Daniel listened, his eyes fixed on the calm surface of the river. Daniel stood quietly at the riverbank, the words of the old man echoing in his mind. The sound of flowing water mixed with the weight of the lesson he had just received. He realized for the first time that the pain in his life was not the only problem. The way he was carrying it made it heavier. The old man placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder and continued, "Everyone in this world has pain. No one escapes it. Look around. Behind every smiling face, there are unspoken struggles. Behind every strong person are silent battles. But those who survive, those who live peacefully, are not the ones without problems. They are the ones who make their hearts wide enough so that pain has no place to settle." Daniel lowered his head. His voice was soft, almost breaking. "But how do I grow my heart? How do I make it as wide as a river? My life feels so heavy. My mind always reminds me of everything I don't have." The old man smiled kindly, as though he had heard this question many times before. "My son, a heart grows with gratitude. When you learn to thank life for even the smallest blessings, your heart begins to stretch. When you remember the good while facing the bad, your heart becomes stronger than your pain. Gratitude is the river that makes bitterness dissolve." Daniel remained silent. Gratitude? He had been so busy counting everything